again, it's about just like helping people, like giving everyone these opportunities, like I talked about. Like, okay, this is a platform. This is a way to create music. All we're trying to do is connect more people around the world, make it easier to create music. And it's for the good of the culture as opposed to like introducing a product that really does like cannibalize and take advantage of those in the culture.
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Upside Podcast. We are finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Eric Hornung, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Scotch on the Rocks himself, Jay Klaus. Jay, how's it going, man? What's going on with you?
It's going well. This is a Scotch neat, by the way. There are no rocks here.
Not a rocks guy.
And it's not
change the nickname. He's not a rocks guy. Everyone.
It's not that I'm opposed to rocks necessarily, so much as I'm that guy who doesn't refill the ice tray. And I live in a studio apartment. So if I don't refill the ice tray, nobody else does.
How do you feel about the clear ice versus hazy ice debate? Is it worth the extra effort to get the clear ice?
Big fan of clear ice. Disclaimer, one of my clients in Unreal has a physical product that creates clear ice cubes. So rep to On the Rocks, which you can find on Amazon, clearice.rocks.
That's Mr. On the Rocks. You're just Mr. Scotch. You
Correct.
put you two together in this new system, and you get Mr. Scotch on the Rocks. Funny how that little plug just worked out there for you. Very nice.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Matt and make sure that he sponsors the podcast here in the future.
Perfect. So what are we doing here, Jay?
Today, we are talking to another founder in Columbus, Ohio. Good friend of mine, actually. So excited to have Seth Miller on the show. Seth Miller is a co-founder and CEO of Rapchat. He's a graduate of Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, a Columbus native. Rapchat was in batch 15 of 500 startups, where he entered in 2015. Rapchat is the best way for today's rap enthusiasts to create, collaborate, and connect with tomorrow's stars. Rapchat partners with award-winning artists and top producers to deliver the hottest beats and the most user-friendly platform to make music and network. Combining the convenience of a mobile recording studio with the power of a social network, Rapchat is the premier place for artists and fans to fine-tune their craft while helping the world discover new talent. Eric, there's not a lot to be found on Rapchat. I had a difficult time researching for this.
I did as well. And before we get into the actual research, I just want to take a step back. And we're still a little early in the podcast history. I'd love to have you give an overview of maybe some new listeners about why we set up this podcast and what we're doing here.
Oh, yes. We're doing this to start the podcast. So Eric and I, good friends, we go way back. We spend a lot of time talking about startups outside of Silicon Valley. Eric lives in New York. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I connect with a lot of startups here in Columbus, in Ohio, in the Midwest. Part of his role in New York is he's looking at emerging technologies. So we talk about this a lot. And we said, let's share this and what we talk about and the things that we're learning with some listeners. And also shine a light on some of these entrepreneurs here in the Midwest, in the heartland, outside of Silicon Valley, who are proving that they can be just as effective in building world-class companies while being capital efficient and maybe even more resilient. So we're here talking to you guys about what we're finding as in the way of startups here outside of Silicon Valley. We want to show that there's a lot of opportunity, and not just, from the founder standpoint, but from the investment standpoint as well.
Absolutely. And looking at that investment standpoint, we tried to model our podcast around the angel investing structure. So what would an angel investor do as they looked at a business? There are three primary stages. There's research, which is what Jay and I are about to talk about in a second. And that's looking online, using databases, using proprietary sources, reaching out to contacts in the industry to get a sense of this company. The second one is an interview with the founder themselves. So Jay mentioned earlier that we're going to have Seth Miller from Rapchat on today. When we talk to Seth, we want to get a good feeling about the company that we couldn't get online, get some of our questions answered that we couldn't find in our research, and ask questions that are maybe a little bit deeper, futuristic, that only the founder could answer. And then finally, the debrief. So this is going to be in the form of a verbal, simplified deal memo, and we'll talk more about that later. With that being said, Jay, do you want to get into the research, or do you have anything to add for the audience?
No, I think you covered it. I'm excited to talk to Seth here today. I found Rapchat, the app, before I even met Seth, so it's cool now to be friends with the founder of this app I was screwing around with back in 2015 or 2016. But it's a fun app. So if it wasn't obvious from the intro, Rapchat allows you to choose some different beats that are inside the app, and there's a ton of them. There's a ton of different beats that you can spend hours scrolling through and listening to, and then lay your own freestyle rap over top of it. You can save that then. You can edit it in their studio. You can send that to friends. I believe from what I read, the story was, it was 2015. He was talking with some friends. They were talking about app ideas. They were freestyling at the time. I forget the song. You may know the actual song from the research. They were freestyling at the time, and they said, well, what if we could just send freestyle raps to our friends that go away like Snapchats go away? So it's a cool story. Eric, what struck you from the research?
So I thought the whole story behind it was fascinating. They created the app at a startup weekend, which I know you're really involved with, Jay. If you can give a quick 15-second overview of what a startup weekend is.
Big fan of Startup Weekend. Have been organizing it here locally in Columbus for over 5 years and facilitate events globally because it's a global organization that run weekend-long events, bringing in anywhere from 20 to 120 people and letting those individuals pitch ideas, website ideas, app ideas, business ideas, that they then field a team, and the team validates the idea, builds an MVP, and presents that MVP to a panel of judges by the end of a weekend. And it's an incredible resource for people to get an initial feeling and understanding of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. It's a really good experiential education to what it's like in a microcosm to start a business and validate an idea.
And the reason I'm pretty familiar with this idea is that when I was in college with Jay, someone named Jay sent me a text message saying, hey, you should sign up for Rapchat and send me a rap. And I have never been more confused in my life. I won't lie, I didn't download it. So maybe I'll have to confess to Seth that I didn't download his app in 2015. But like 450,000 people did. So he wasn't really missing out on my terrible vocal skills.
Are you saying I sent you a text to check out Rapchat?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I don't remember. I was really big on it for a while. I was really screwing around. The people on Rapchat have gotten so much better. It went from,
I can imagine.
It went from being this app that pretty average, dumpy dudes like me were just screwing around and making horrible stuff to now they have some incredibly talented people going in there and making really good stuff. And I got intimidated.
I understand that. That's one of the questions I want to ask Seth looking at the bigger picture, because in the name Rapchat, you essentially have this huge Snapchat shadow that you're laying in, which says, okay, this is something that's low filter, low key. You can come in and you can put a rap out for 30 seconds, a minute, and it's fun, it's flirty. You just get it out the door, right? And then it's gone. But then you go on there now, and I went on earlier today just to listen to some of the people on the top of the charts, and they're putting like some bangers out there, right? And it's like, wow, this could have such bigger potential in solving the problems of high studio costs, inaccessibility to record labels. Like there's a lot of big play out there, and I'm really interested to hear what Seth has to say about the future vision.
People are putting in work. The number that really popped out to me in the research was that from an article in May 2017, and I remember Seth telling me a similar statistic not long ago, the average user session was 17 minutes. That's crazy. Someone opens up the app and spends 17 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't spend 17 minutes in Instagram, and I'm always in Instagram.
Yeah, I mean that is huge because
it's a big number.
Like I don't spend 17 minutes in Spotify. I just flip it open and turn it on, right? Like you have to be actively participating in an app to be there for 17 minutes.
And so the obvious question is, well, one of the clear questions is going to be for Seth, what's the model? Because
right,
this is a B2C business, a rare B2C business in the Midwest. So lots of questions already. but I know that they do not currently do straight up advertising. And if you're having people spend 17 minutes in your app, you have some opportunity to integrate advertising to capture on that attention that you're pulling in from a demographic that I read was 18 to 24 years old, a difficult demographic to reach as it is. So interested to hear from Seth the model, where their user growth has come from, how much more it can grow, and what that means in terms of either advertising dollars or, their future plans.
Right, I agree. So I know that they sell premium beats, and that seems like, unless there's some sort of data play, the primary driver of revenue at this point.
Is that live in the app, or was that a plan that you read? I'm unclear.
No, that's live. That's live in the app. I was playing on it today. You can buy a starter pack, which is like 11 beats for supposed to be $18, but you get it for like $2.99, and then you can buy additional beats on top of that, anywhere from 99 cents to $5.99 or something like that.
In-app purchases is a major revenue driver now in the app market because people don't want to sully their user experience with advertising. You have things like Clash of Clans that do billions of dollars of revenue a year selling fake swords to fake soldiers.
Right.
So I think there's probably a future there, and I'm interested to hear what his actual projections look like with that as a model.
I'm very curious because you also have so for the exact same beat, you have a free version, which is about a minute and 30. And then you have a full version, which is like 3:30 to 5 minutes. So I think the latter geared at full songs and the former geared at just samples or these challenges, which is something else that I'm really interested in on the product side, to hear how they're utilizing challenges, because I saw one where they actually got Machine Gun Kelly's Trap Paris beat and they put it out there, and then they had a Machine Gun Kelly challenge, and everyone posted, and there was like some sort of giveaway for the winner. So
can you introduce Machine Gun Kelly and maybe do a cover of one of his songs?
Can I introduce it? So he is a wild boy from Cleveland, East Side, 216, Shaker Heights, actually. But he he grew up in Cleveland, and he's a huge supporter of Cleveland, and he is one of the white rappers out there, and he has a little bit harder of a style. And can I do one of his songs? Yes. Will I? I don't have scotch in front of me, Jay. I'm not the lucky one here.
For those who can't see, Eric is in a full suit right now, and I would love to see him try to cover a Machine Gun Kelly song right now. But I'll let you off the hook for now. You did put in some work earlier sending me a Rapchat, which I have not yet reciprocated, so I feel like I don't have leverage in this negotiation.
Yeah, to the users, it's bad. So moving forward into competitors, what do we see here in terms of the competitive landscape? Because the main thing that you're vying for is musical attention, which is a massive market.
Well, musical attention, yes, but just even attention generally. Why am I going to go into Rapchat as opposed to Instagram? I've got 15 minutes here. I got my 17 minutes I'm going to spend on an app. Why Rapchat as opposed to Instagram? So I'm interested to hear what he knows about the psychographics of the people who use this, because it's a much more active time than just scrolling through photos. It's asking you to put in effort. But as far as the competitive landscape, super interesting question. I was thinking about this because, SoundCloud is in trouble, and that's a major player in the music app space. But then you have Shazam being purchased by Apple in December of 2017 for $400 million. You have Musical.ly that was bought in November of 2017 for $800 million. They had raised almost $150 million through a Series C. And then you have Smule, which is like this karaoke app, to what I understand, raised $157 million through a Series H. Did I take all of your fun facts?
You did not take all of my fun facts, but you did a great job of looking at the biggest players in the startup music space and where they've been. And I really think that the most interesting part of that is going to be not the multiple that they get, because obviously seems like a pretty nice multiple, but which of these is the best comparable to Rapchat? And I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Is it a karaoke app? I don't think so. Is it more of a pipeline almost like a training space or a proving ground? then it wouldn't be like any of those things you just mentioned. So it's very, very unique. I couldn't find any great comps for it.
Unique New York. Yes, I would agree. Musically and Smule both have some similarities, but Rapchat's put in a lot of work to add more of a social component, yes, but also add in these higher quality studio components. But, the question is, are these apps an indication of consolidation in the space? Does Rapchat become an acquisition target by a Musical.ly or a Smule? Obviously, Rapchat has not raised the level of funding that these companies have, which I'm interested to get his take on that. The amount of funding that they've received compared to Rapchat with the user engagement numbers I'm seeing on Rapchat, I wonder if that is a component of geography. Like I said earlier, a B2C company like this in the Midwest is a rare bird and a difficult sell based on what I know about investors in this area. So interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, same. I'm also interested to hear if they're planning to follow the Genius model, which for those of us who were around 10 years ago was called Rap Genius. Maybe not even 10 years ago, 8 years ago. It was called Rap Genius. And they got their break-in into rap because it was the easiest to get a foothold, and then expanded into all music, I believe poetry, and some novels and other types of written words that they could put anecdotes to. And I wonder if Rapchat eventually just becomes chat, and you can be the next country star as well as the next rap star.
Good question. We're going a little long here. Are you ready to jump in and talk to Seth, or do you have any closing comments?
I don't. I am really excited to jump in, and let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Seth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Can you give us a brief intro to you?
Sure. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I run a company called Rapchat, which I'm sure we'll get into what Rapchat is, but it's an app that lets you record freestyles on your phone and share them anywhere you want. So other than that, I love Cleveland sports, love watching sports, hanging with friends. What else?
Are you from Cleveland?
I am from Columbus, actually.
Okay.
So
how'd you get into Cleveland sports?
My mom's side of the family is from Ravenna, which is like northeast Ohio.
Yep.
And so my grandpa's a huge Browns fan, unfortunately.
Hey, nothing unfortunate about that, man. This is going to be the year.
Yeah,
we're gonna get more wins than last year. That's for sure.
I'm ready for the draft again, draft night, aka the Super Bowl. But yeah, so my mom's side of the family, and then there's really no professional team in Columbus. So I mean, I like the crew. So hopefully they don't move out. But that's a little background on me. I went to school at Ohio University, lived in Cleveland for a year. After that, moved around, went to Chicago, went to San Francisco. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit. Through 500 startups, lived in LA, and then I'm back in my hometown. So
let's get into that now. That sounds interesting. So you moved around a bunch, and somehow 500 startups got involved. Can you tease out that story a little bit more for us?
Yeah, my first job out of school, I was working as a server infrastructure engineer at Progressive Insurance in Cleveland. I started Rapchat while in school. We launched live the summer I graduated, basically right when I was taking this big boy job. And after 8 months there, quit that. And that's when I moved to Chicago to work on Rapchat with my business partner, Pat. And I moved to Chicago. Initially, we were our whole goal is to get into an accelerator that summer. And so, we hit up all the main accelerators, and really 500 Stars was the last one we applied for. And it's kind of a funny story, but it was really our last shot. And the night of applying, we were going to a concert. And we were pre-gaming at Pat's spot, and we're all right, this is it. But of course, it's the night before the application's due, and every single accelerator asks for a pitch interview video, which you never actually have. And we didn't have time to even do one on the spot, and so we just pasted a link to J. Cole's song "Blow Up." If you're not familiar with the lyrics, it goes, "I'm about to blow up," and it's this awesome hype song, and that's what we put in as our link for our pitch video.
So on brand.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And then, I really was getting ready to move back to Columbus at that time because I've been staying at my friend's family's house for 3 months, and I've been out of a job for a year and a half, just like freelancing, like basically out of money. Literally the weekend, I was like starting to move stuff back. We got a call from 500 and they're like, hey, like we really want to have you here. Like, can you get here in 2 days? Blah, blah. And so I booked a ticket and left from Columbus to San Francisco, like in 2 days with half of my stuff still in Chicago and my family or friend's family's house. So it was nuts. I mean, it was pretty much right before we decided we had to go back and get real jobs. And right before I was like going to move back in with my parents. So that was huge. And why they wanted us in, like we were different. We were pretty much the only consumer social network app company in that batch, which was interesting. Out of like 40 companies, they were at the time really focused on marketplaces and SaaS companies. But our growth was like really good. And they had a couple guys on staff that were really interested in consumer mobile. And so it was nice to have some champions in there. And then, I mean, the whole organization was just super excited about us. So that was sweet.
So why'd you make your way back to Columbus? You're in Columbus currently, right?
Yeah, almost every time I've made my way back to Columbus is because I ran out of money. So we went through 500, you get some funding through 500, and we made that last for a year. And like I said, we stayed in San Francisco, extremely expensive place to decide to stay. I don't recommend that, especially when you don't have more than like 3 months of runway. But we were there for 8 months and then moved to LA for a couple of months. And basically we ran out of money. And so we're like, we have to go home because we can't afford to live anywhere. And so at this time I did move back in with my parents for a couple of months. But again, it was like, let's just give this a final go. And that's when we just went and pitched a bunch of investors in Columbus. And the ecosystem actually evolved a lot since the last time I was in Columbus, which was 2 years prior. Mm-hmm. And we got some traction with local investors. And we've been fundraising for like 3 years. And so once we officially locked in a lead, it was a lot easier to go like, hit up all these other people that were initially interested, because just let me know when you get a lead. That's a classic line. But we did. And some of them joined in on their own.
Can you talk about that fundraising process a little bit in the Midwest for a company like yours? I know you came back because you needed money, but that seems like there aren't many B2C companies in Columbus, Ohio raising funds. So can you talk about that reality?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality, but it makes sense. There just hasn't been a ton of consumer success stories in the Midwest, and by default in the industries that are in Columbus or surrounding cities, investors are a lot more drawn to healthcare and SaaS companies. And yeah, if you're a consumer company, I mean, the place to be, they tell you, is San Francisco or LA, which is true. But we found like even, we pitched a bunch of investors more in San Francisco than LA. There's so many companies, so many like consumer companies, and they were already burnt out from the Twitters and the Facebooks, and well, those are the success stories. the companies that followed them that were trying to be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There was just this huge wave of funding initially for social networks, and a lot of them flopped. Yik's a decent example, even though they're from Atlanta, they got money from out west. And so, yeah, I think there was just a hesitance out west because they've been burned so many times and it's not as sexy. They're more into like AI, VR, etc. And then here, it was just like, I think it was a unique time for us because there's a lot more capital now. And I think they're still figuring out what companies, like how to actually fund all these companies. Like the capital since 3 years ago is pretty much like 10x, at least in Ohio. And so it was just, I mean, to answer your question, roundabout way of answering your question, it was tough, but there was also unique like advantages. Definitely being like classic bigger fish in a smaller pond. We probably had the most traction out of any consumer startup in the Midwest at the time we were raising. And so that was, it's easy to get meetings. It's easy to like sell people, but the hurdle isn't necessarily getting the meetings and getting people excited. It's like, holy shit, like you've never invested in a consumer startup. Like, are you ready to invest in a consumer startup? Like it's a totally different trajectory than a SaaS company where the financial model is really sturdy and you have experience with what a SaaS model or a SaaS company's trajectory looks like. Like our trajectory is totally different than that. You don't have experience with that, but the returns will be crazy if we do, if we do blow up,
You mentioned a financial model and how it's a little different in SaaS and B2C. What is, for our listeners, a typical B2C business model look like? And then how does Rapchat's business model both mirror that typical model and maybe add on a little bit?
All right. So I guess typical B2C model, and this is one that Facebook did a really good job of, and Twitter's trying, and Instagram does a really good job before they got bought by Facebook. But just get as many users as you possibly can, and then you leverage that to create an advertising platform. That is the model, or has been the model, I'd say, for like the past 10 years, but it's changing. And I think like that's what a lot of consumer startups nowadays are struggling with, is like which model to go with. And so like one, a newer model that more companies are trying and games have a ton of success with, or is like a freemium model, where, Clash of Clans can make $1 million a day doing this, but you give away the app, your product, for free, and then you charge for upgrades. That's different than just advertising your users. That model is something we're way more interested in, because like our product, like there's tangible value that are add-ons, right? So like it's a free mobile recording studio. We have a ton of free beats, but we want to offer the ability to buy better beats, or buy vocal effects, or buy things that are actually adding value, as opposed to just, cluttering your feed with a bunch of ads and having to get into like an ad targeting. I mean, you just see all the stuff Facebook's going through. So those are kind of the two main models I've seen. But in reality, like from a venture perspective, it's still very much like the business model is less important than how many users you have ultimately. Like the real model is just amassing as many users as you possibly can and getting bought by a bigger company that has that figured out, or already has an advertising engine, a la Facebook, a la any of these Chinese behemoth digital companies. Again, everyone has a different opinion, but like most strategic investors and advisors I've talked to, the status is still like, just get as many users, like you'll figure it out, or another company will figure it out. And like, again, it's all about engagement. Like engagement is money nowadays. It's just like, how do you actually get money? That's the bigger question.
At some point when you guys were low on cash, you were probably foregoing some level of advertising revenue, right?
Oh, we still are. Like, we still are. I mean, that's the other thing with the first model I mentioned, is that the advertising rates are shit right now, and they continue to go down, and they've been declining forever. And so that model, like looking forward, continues to be less exciting and less profitable. But for us, when we were struggling, of course, I was always like you can run projections, and it's like, even if we make this, like, I guess I can live a little better, but it wasn't a crazy sum of money that was going to fund the business, So that's really why we've been pursuing investment, and just like knowing that, all right, we need to like scale the user base. And, we're always testing the model. And again, I still believe in the freemium model, but it's just a matter of when you kind of pull that lever. And like, there's a lot of other levers we're interested in right now.
You talked about your user engagement being really high, even on the West Coast. Can you give us some insight, some numbers about your user engagement and growth over the last year, 2 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, one number off the top is like the average user spends over 15 minutes on the app a day. That's more than almost every app besides Facebook. So that's something we're really excited about. We've grown our active user base consistently over the past 2 years. But this month we're going to pass 300,000 users that are active on iOS and Android per month. What's
like annualized growth on that look like over the last 2 years, roughly?
It's over 10x. I would say 10x, but I think it's a little over that. I mean, 2 years, that's 2017 or 2016.
Users seem to be they are a huge part of the business model, both in freemium and the advertising model. And engagement is kind of your guys' bread and butter, it sounds like, because 15 plus minutes is pretty crazy for engagement. So who is your target audience?
So there's really two different distinct audiences that are target and that use the app. One is the actual rapper or aspiring rapper that really like truly wants to create music and gain a following and spread the word about their brand, both on and off the app, their SoundCloud, their Twitter, whatever. They're coming to the app because it is like a crazy utility for them to be able to create a song right from their phone for free over all these different beats and share it. They can share it to their socials. It's just an easy way to create relevant content. The other thing is they can actually do like a lot of different demo tracks where they're like practicing their flows, and then they can save it and send it to whoever they're actually going to rap with. That's a whole other use case. But those are the the power users and the aspiring artists. The other bigger segment actually is people that just want to have fun and create a funny rap and share with their friends, like Jay did, whatever, 3 years ago. Yeah.
You know, the last time I logged into the app, is that what you're saying?
No. I hope not, but it could be.
I was in there today, man.
Okay, all right. There's retention for you. 3 years and then today. But no, like then the other group, yeah, is like Jay, that isn't an actual aspiring artist, but finds a lot of value and fun in just like creating music and raps on their phone and then sharing it with their friends, texting them ridiculous raps. I've heard a couple and they are ridiculous, but it's two distinct user groups and two distinct use cases. And so that, I mean, one, it's awesome because they both want to share their raps externally, and that just drives a lot of viral growth. Two, it does make building product a little difficult sometimes, like trying to figure out who to really appeal to.
Do you also have like record label talent scouts or anything on there at all? Or have any of them reached out to you to kind of be like, hey, if someone actually blows up on here and we can find some talent, it's a pretty cheap way to do it and we don't have to travel to them?
So I don't know, but I don't think currently. I mean, we do work with record labels in a different sense where they want to promote artists that they've scouted that are new, that are up and coming. And a lot of times we do contests and different challenges and different promotions around one of their smaller, more up and coming artists. We do think, though, it will eventually be a place to discover the next wave of big rappers, without a doubt. And like, there's a handful on the app right now that I know could be signed to a label. You know, that's just something, once we get more resources and just more scale, I know is going to come naturally. Like, just like YouTube or SoundCloud or any of these other content creator networks, like you will have those like kind of mega stars that rise from it. And what's nice is that we have worked with a ton of labels and managers. And so eventually we'll be at a point where we can just like hit them up and be like, yo, here's the top 10 hottest rap chatters this week. Let me know who you want to talk to, or, you know, facilitate a more efficient way to do it.
Is that something that you want to capture value on facilitating, or is the value for you guys that if people are coming to scout on the app, that's going to drive more people into the app?
We've thought about it. I don't think we know for sure yet. The former, or like actually cashing in on facilitating that, is almost, we're basically a pseudo label. That's something we're interested in and think would be awesome, but like, in being realistic, we don't have the resource for that right now, and just not a space to be in. But I don't know. I mean, for starters, like, yeah, we just want to get our users signed because they should be, and it's a way to make money, and like, we've helped create careers. And once people see the value in that, that makes us like the number one, you know, creation app. Is like, holy shit, you can get signed to Rock Nation if you blow up on one contest from Rapchat. Like, that is not an insane story to think about in a year.
So let's pivot back to something that you mentioned earlier, the challenges. What are those? How are those increasing engagement, if you have numbers on it or not? What was the impetus behind creating them? Was it the record labels, or was it something you guys came up with?
That was a feature that was added on. After we went through 500, we made a pretty big shift from being a messaging app that's like a really simple recording app to pretty much a full-on social network component as well. And with that, we added a big discover section, and that's something we've iterated on as well. But contests, it was just kind of like a natural evolution, because we would add beats, right? And then people would like love to rap over certain beats, and they'd tweet about it. And at the same time, there was all these other like challenges, like So Gone Challenge, right? It was like a challenge that went viral on Twitter. There's just so many different challenges going on other platforms that were maybe even video or rap or singing, but it was just like this kind of trend we noticed with like millennials and social media, and it just made perfect sense. And so we run our own too. Like, we did a Fortnite challenge,
or an upside challenge,
or we can do an upside challenge.
We did a mannequin challenge at Startup Weekend.
See, yeah, exactly. I was trying to think of that one. So yeah, great example. People are already like ready for the challenge mindset, and it is a cool way. Like, we can leverage it so many different ways. Like, we work with artists, we work with producers, but then we'll do fun stuff like a Fortnite challenge or over like a Fortnite themed beat. You know, eventually we'll probably open that up to brands too, to like offer different things, like Shure microphones. Like, we did one with Shure where the winner gets like a free Shure microphone, which is a pretty dope microphone, things like that. So, and it just gives people a reason to rap, like a subject, or yeah, just anything that kind of can give you, a subject is helpful.
With the premium beats being one of your revenue models or part of your revenue model, are you assuming that the one segment of your audience, the segment that wants to be rappers, that smaller segment, do you just need them to be into the premium beats for this to be a success for you guys and to get to where you're trying to go, or does that need to carry into that bigger segment of kind of the casual Jay and Eric rapper?
Well, I mean, one really important piece of the business model, or this newer age business model I forgot to mention, is subscriptions. And that is something that a lot of apps have been keen on and are making really good money doing. For us, like the projections we've ran and the models we have, we're not as worried about the J's and Eric's. It's more about, can we provide enough value to power users where they're willing to pay month over month in a subscription fee to unlock all the premium content. We're still going to offer you the ability to buy a one-off filter or one-off beat, but what we want to do is offer enough tools where it makes sense to pay a small amount a month over and over again, just like you would for Netflix or SoundCloud Pro or anything. So that is actually the most important piece of this business model.
This is just an exploratory question. Is top line monthly active user growth important, or is it important for your business to become sort of like an Adobe Creative Studio for rappers?
That is $1 million question. It's tough. I mean, to be honest, we're still having discussions around that and still trying to figure out which route makes sense for what we want to do, because up until this point, we've been kind of in between, and we might stay in between. We might find a way to do that. But yeah, it going back to what I said earlier, there's two distinct user groups. You have the Adobe Creator group, and then you have like just the casual, fun Instagram. If you were to do Photoshop versus Instagram, right? And both companies make a ton of money and have a lot of success. And so we're trying to figure out if we can stay in between, or if we need to go one way or the other, which way do we want to go?
Well, you could say that before Instagram, the divide was Flickr versus Photoshop, right? And then Instagram came in and just was the middle ground. So maybe that divide's just shrinking across every playing field. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
it's good that you're in a position where you can make that decision. You can say, well, our user growth is crazy and we could keep going down this path. At least you're in a position where the choice is yours and it's not kind of dictated by user growth.
Or dictated by competitors, which we haven't really got to yet. So what do you see as the competitive landscape? Because Jay and I talked a little bit about this in the intro, and we don't have a solid competitor for you. So when you guys are looking at, okay, who's doing what are you looking at?
We look at a handful of different apps and like platforms, I guess. Like one competitor is Smule. So Smule is a music app conglomerate. Like they have 10 of the top 50 music apps. They make a ton of money on these music apps. They've figured out how to get people to pay for music apps. They do some things really well. They have a specific rap app called Auto Rap that will change your voice and turn it into T-Pain style auto-tune and then sync it to a beat, it's a cool experience. But
will that make me sound good?
It will, I think. Or maybe not. I think it'll make you sound terrible, actually, and anyone who listens. No, I'm just kidding. It actually is cool. But yeah, so Auto Rap and Smule as a whole, like if you're a music app, they're a competitor. Like they own so much of the market and they accumulate so many dollars from users that could be paying for your app that you have to keep an eye on them. For us, like it's cool because Auto Rap, even though it may get more downloads per day, or at least it did when I was looking last, but it doesn't have a real community. And so like our thing has always been like investing in our community and making sure that people get value outside of just a recording app, and they give feedback to each other. And so we have a strong, big, engaged community that no other music app, creation app has. And so that's what always set us apart. And you go look at leaderboards or any sort of discover section for an auto rap or any of these other rap apps, you can just look at the numbers and you can tell like, why we've had our success. But anyway, long-winded answer. Smule is one. There's other smaller apps that are kind of coming out of the woodwork that do like basically the exact same thing. We've fought off apps like that for the past 3 years. We probably still will because, when I started working on this, no one had an app. No one had a rap creation or rap app. And then people realized how big the market is, and I was actually shocked that no one did it. So it's not really that surprising. We also just look at the music industry as a whole. We look at like Spotify. We look at how people use SoundCloud. We look at how people use GarageBand or Splice or any of these platforms. That's important for our power users. But yeah, I mean, competitors, like, that's tough. It's not like Instagram or Snapchat, and we're constantly like looking over our shoulder, have to be like we're just heads down. We are ahead of the pack when it comes to rap creation apps, and so we just keep building dope shit and keep our users around. Like, that's what we're focused on.
What about Musically?
So that's not a competitor. Yeah, I mean, Musically has been a huge inspiration for us, for me, from a design perspective. What they were able to do with just really simple videos in a great social network and get acquired for basically $1 billion. That was awesome I think social and consumer needed that. I think it came at a crucial time when people thought it was dead, but yet this app could get half of American teens using it like crazy. They're not a competitor because the users don't make music. And frankly, their user base as of now is like way younger than ours. They're probably like more middle school-esque, and we're kind of 17, 18 up. They're probably 13 to 17, or I know they are. But yeah, in terms of like, they're way more helpful than hurtful, I guess. Like, we always look at how they feature content. Their designs are always great. How they do their leaderboards, how they do their tagging. We take a lot of inspiration from them.
One last kind of hard question from me. Not that these are hard, because you're... What numbers do you guys look at internally? What's important for you to monitor? I'm not asking for specifics, but what's important for you guys to monitor to see the health of Rapchat and how things are growing?
Retention is probably the most important for any app or even business, I guess, depending on your sector. But yeah, we are laser focused on retention. Like, can we get users to come back day over day, week over week, month over month? So focusing on daily, weekly, monthly retention, long-term retention, like, that's really important when you start modeling out like how you're going to make money and what percent of your users you actually can make money. That's the hardest thing in mobile apps, is that retention is just really freaking hard. And if you're not Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat, like, it's even it's the hardest thing. So we focus on that a lot, and then outside of that, deeper engagement numbers that are more relatable to what we do. So raps uploaded, unique number of creators. Are we growing our creator base? Raps shared. Are we growing the number of raps that are shared externally? These are all things that correlate directly with MAU and just like health of a company in our space.
Looking at retention specifically, over the last 3 years, I'm guessing you guys have tinkered with the app and have come up with some ways that you thought would improve retention. Do you have any specific stories of big successes in the Rapchat platform, or maybe some failures that you had to reverse?
Definitely some successes. So when we moved from a messaging app to a social network, that greatly improved retention. That was a crazy shift. When we introduced a whole new Discover page with the contests and tags and leaderboards, that was another pretty big shift. Those are the two biggest. We're getting ready to redo the studio this summer and do some other really cool audio type features that we haven't touched the studio in like 3 years, which is crazy. We're getting ready to redo that. I think that's going to have a good impact. But yeah, those two things were big. But actually, like, and I think most mobile app entrepreneurs will tell you, like, it's rarely do you have like a really big jump in retention off one feature. Like, it's a lot of really small tweaks that compound into just your retention curve rising. And so that's what we try and focus on. Even something as simple as like upping the amount of people that opt into push notifications, that can have a crazy impact. Like we we send out notifications that when we have a contest or when we have new beats added, we don't spam people, but it's relevant people want to know about. If they're not subscribed or they're not opted into push notifications, they don't get that. They lose that motivation to come back to the app. And so like making small tweaks in how you ask people for push notification opt-in, or where you ask for it in the onboarding flow, or if you do it in onboarding at all, that all has crazy implications. And so like every other app company, we've tinkered with that quite a bit. And we've seen some crazy jumps, from small things like that. Yeah, there's also things you do outside of the app completely, like how you communicate with users that you're doing a contest or the winner of a contest or that there's new beats. That doesn't even directly, again, it's not like a feature on your app. It's just this greater like communication matrix that makes people want to come back to your app,
Rapchat is the only app on my phone that I want my volume to be on when I receive a push notification. Can you talk about the sounds with your push notifications? What's going on there? What's the inspiration?
I got to give a shout to my business partner for that. His name's Pat, a.k.a. P. Holla. But he's an actual rapper, producer, musician, unlike myself. But I think we were just in LA one day, and we were just shooting the shit and talking about features and brainstorming. And we got to talking about like ad libs. What if you could do popular ad libs over tracks, or the ability to do an ad lib track? And then he kind of ran with that. He's like, also you should get them for push notifications too. Like it's a quick like
skirt
or like skirt. Yeah. Hey, like whatever it is. So we just did it.
Also, shout out to Pat P. Holla for doing our intro tunes for this podcast, which we're very excited about. Went to Pat and I said, basically, Pat, you use HQ Trivia? And he was like, yep. And I said, we've got to have the intro be hype. I need hype. I need a woo. We looked through his whole catalog of music and we said, this is the one. This is the track.
That's great. Yeah, I heard it. It sounded awesome. Very hype.
Can you talk a little bit more about your team? Because, we did some research, and I know the team that exists now isn't your startup weekend team per se. So can you talk about your team and the evolution of that?
It's definitely evolved. When I started at like OU, it was really just a few guys, one of my best friends, who we came up with the idea with together, and went to a startup weekend and pitched it and won, and then kind of built a team in Athens, Ohio. Pat got involved right away, and I remember calling him up and same thing, being like, I got this rap app idea, I need beats. And he's like, I got beats. And then he was really interested from there on out and just got more and more involved very early on. And so that was huge to have really a co-founder that knew music and knew I've talked about these two groups this kind of whole call. Like I can represent the people that want to freestyle and suck at rapping. I'm all right, but like generally not that great. And then Pat can represent people that actually make music. And so Pat and I were, we were together, heads down on it very early on. But, as it evolved, it really, like as I graduated, some of the existing team had jobs they had to go to and kind of fizzled out for a little bit. And then really over the next like 2 years, it was pretty much just Pat and I and like random people that would come along and want to work on it. And we were always kind of like starving for tech talent. Neither of us could code. And then this summer I graduated, I was like, this, I got to learn how to code because I can't keep trying to get people to work for free. It just it's not working. And like, we haven't found the right person. So I taught myself how to code. And so over the next 2 years, I could actually code the updates. That was huge. That like took a lot of pressure off everything. And
that's insane. Do you realize how crazy that is? And nobody does that.
Wow. I'm sure there's people that have done it, but
how'd you do it?
It's out of necessity, dude. It's out of necessity. Like, yeah, looking back, it was nuts, and I can't even believe some of the products we shipped. Yeah, I just learned from YouTube. What else? Like Google. I did have a mentor at the time that was like advising. That was a really good iOS developer, and so he would help out when he was free and like mentor me. But it took me 8 months to a year to like really feel comfortable like shipping production level code in parentheses, but at least something that would work. And then I don't know, it was crazy. And I just got like better and better, more comfortable. And then we could do updates faster. And then eventually, finally, found somebody better than me at iOS development that was willing to work. We found an Android developer that was willing to move out to San Francisco and live in our living room for no pay, like on a futon. And Pat had like a broken air mattress, and I got an actual mattress, but it was like an inch thick from IKEA. So like, yeah, really no mattress.
I would love to see. I would love to see some comparative or some comparable to look at the number of users on a platform as coded by someone with less than a year of coding experience. I gotta think you're up there on the leaderboard.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that'd be cool. But I'm trying to think anyone else who has. I mean, I know there's a bunch of people, but
something you just touched on that I wanted to ask about earlier. You mentioned a mentor. So in the Midwest, like I keep saying, not many B2C companies here. What's the role of mentorship for you as you run this company? Can you find mentors here? Or are you talking to people elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I have mentors here in the Midwest, I guess, a couple of them. And then I have people outside of the Midwest, like San Francisco, LA, that are in this space. It's really important too, because like I said, honestly, the investors don't really mess with these type of companies right now. And so like you need a mentor, usually ideally someone that has a ton of experience where you can go back and be like, look, like this is crazy. Like I've talked to my mentor X who's done Y. He sold a company for $100 million. He's an LP in a big fund. Like he's telling me this is crazy. Like you need somebody to tell you it's crazy, because in the Midwest there is, I guess I gotta be careful how I put this, but there's just a lot of terms that are like shared across investors, or a lot of norms that are just kind of like solidified, which is fine. Like I understand it, but like you have to have mentors outside of the Midwest, or even just outside these circles, that can tell you like, yo, this is crazy. Like this is how it's going down out West. And you have a leg to stand on, like we did, because you don't have a ton of experience in this area. Let us help you help us, and figure out what makes sense for these type of investments, whether it's terms or whether it's just how you think about it, whether it's how you think about the business model. We're getting ready to bring on like a huge independent director and advisor that is going to have a lot of insight from their experience in the area at like a really big company. And like, that's going to be a pretty seismic shift in how our board or our investors think about what we're doing, So I think it's, especially if you're a consumer company, like you got to get somebody. It's going to be hard to find somebody in the Midwest with consumer experience, first off. Second off, you just need a fresh perspective that can like bring fresh insights to the table.
Besides being a consumer company, was there a challenge in communicating like a hip hop concept? Was that a complicating factor, or was it just being a consumer company?
I think that's always been a huge factor. Like I'll never forget some of the first VC meetings. Like I had some from here, some elsewhere, but like people don't understand how big, and when I say people, I mean like older investors don't understand how big hip hop is for the younger people.
And relevant.
It's the number one genre by far in the world. It has been for years. It continues to be. It is literally like the Rolling Stones back when they grew up. And so sometimes it's helpful to explain it. Like, okay, you remember, like, raise your hand. Who in this room has played guitar with their buddies when they were in high school? And like, you'll probably get 2 or 3 out of 5. And it's like, all right, this is the same thing. Like freestyling or listening to rap or just messing around is the same thing, but just without guitars and with different types of instruments or just your voice. And so sometimes framing it like that like helps. But yeah, I mean, generally the hardest part of our pitch almost always, if the said investor or partner isn't familiar with hip hop, getting across how big hip hop is and making the connection between like the massive market of hip hop and then the massive market that is social media and media creation, Instagram, Snapchat, Musically, like combining those two forces, like that's why some of our numbers like jump off the charts. Like it just makes sense, And so like we really have to drive that home, which sometimes is a pain in the ass, but like sometimes that also like people's eyes like open up really big.
So hip hop is at its core a African American heritage in the United States. It started in that culture. Have you ever had any awkward situations when you were pitching? For those of you who can't see, Seth is not African American. He's Caucasian. Have you had anything like that? Is there any type of ethnicity bias?
No, I haven't picked up on it. Like, I haven't noticed. I'm sure there is, but like it hasn't been strong enough or like evident enough where I felt like uncomfortable or I thought it would like sway a decision or anything like that. Like for us, again, it's just about like making it easy for anyone to create music. And like I think even hip hop as a genre has expanded to kind of all cultures. Like, even in London and South Africa, there's all these different blends of hip hop now. So no, I haven't picked up on it because I think we are very like genuine about like what we're doing and why. Like there is this thing in hip hop, and there is this thing a lot of Black people think is that white people are here to vulture the culture, like culture vultures, right? Like that is a thing, that's a term. And we are the opposite and are like really passionate on the opposite front, where one, we haven't even made $1. Like we have, but realistically we haven't made $1. Two, again, it's about just like helping people, like giving everyone these opportunities like I talked about. Okay, this is a platform. This is a way to create music. All we're trying to do is connect more people around the world, make it easier to create music. And it's for the good of the culture as opposed to like introducing a product that really does like cannibalize and take advantage of those in the culture. And another thing that helps is my business partner grew up rapping with a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different people. And like he's lived like the up and coming rapper game too. And so like in a way he does have credibility to stand on. Like, yes, I've handed out mixtapes. I've created music in my room. I've had to hustle on SoundCloud and I've had some success on YouTube. Like things like that. That also helps like alleviate any sort of like you're just like two, nerdy white guys that like want to create this app and take advantage of a culture that you don't know anything about. Like we live and breathe this shit. And again, like we're pretty embedded and view ourselves as like advancing hip hop culture. Which you always have to remember the roots are African American, and you do have to understand that and respect that, and that's something we're always cognizant too.
Such a interesting, difficult conversation to have when it comes to diversity and inclusion all the time. I was watching SNL last night, and Chadwick Boseman was the host, the guy who's the lead in Black Panther, and they had a literal sketch where they have people coming out of the Black Panther movie. And it's like a couple white guys, and they come out, and I haven't seen Black Panther, but they do some sort of like gesture that is part of like unity and like brotherhood in Black Panther. And they do it, and then they have a couple of some of the actors from SNL who are Black, and they just do this thing like, something about what you just did there just didn't seem right. Like, we agree that we should be able to share this, but something about that just didn't seem right,
Yeah.
And, with Get Out last year being this blockbuster hit and the country being, like, as divided as ever, this is such a relevant topic. Like, Eric, if I would have phrased that same question, I would have been like, what's the, like, PC way to put this? But,
Did I not do that? Did I not do that at all?
No, it was very PC.
It was very PC. It was very PC. But, like, hip-hop predominantly is Black, so it's like a question that we can't ignore. Like let's talk about this because it's probably something you guys faced. But at the end of the day, it's about making music people enjoy. It's about giving, like you said, Seth, people the tools to create music that's in a genre, whether it's dominated by one group of people or not. But it's such a interesting and difficult topic to bring up because there's so much involved. And at the end of the day, we're trying to show respect all the way around.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's even harder it's hard to talk about it because you don't know how to frame certain terms or conversations. And again, I think we're all on the same page, and there's no one that's a culture vulture, it's just tough. It's tough, but has to be talked about.
In startups and technology, we recognize that having more diversity and inclusion strengthens businesses.
Yes.
And it's so hard to talk about that and create a plan for doing that without looking systemically at how do we expand the talent pool, because you don't want to be tokenizing or targeting. Right. And I'm not I'm not talking just African Americans. I'm not talking just black people. I'm talking all races, right? It's difficult, sure. But it's something that we got to keep talking about and acknowledge and work towards being better. And it's going to make our companies better. It's going to make our society better. Sorry, went on a little bit of a tangent. Maybe it's the second Scotch Sans rocks, Eric.
Oh. That's okay, because our podcast, and we'll get to our final question here in a second, but our podcast is about finding upside outside of Silicon Valley, but that is just because Silicon Valley is the majority of venture capital. So in a way, we're kind of always looking at the minority players, the people who are fighting a little bit harder. And I think that it's definitely a relevant conversation. It's a tough conversation, regardless of what industry you're in, whether it's race or dollars or whatever. Whenever you're coming from the smaller perspective, there's always going to be tough conversations to have. And I'm really happy that you answered that the way you did. And we had a pretty good conversation about it, I think. Even if Jay has had, is that another glass of scotch in your hand, Jay?
Second scotch. Been a long day. I earned it.
Yeah, heard that.
All right. So our final question, Jay, do you want to take it?
Well, a couple questions. Is there anything, Seth, that we should have asked that we did not ask that you wanted to touch on or talk about?
Not off the top of my head, no.
All right. So after this, our listeners are fired up. They want to get into Rapchat. They want to make some of their own apps. Where can, A, they find more about you or the company? And B, is there any type of upside challenge we can do?
Oh, all right. A, just Google Rapchat or go to your app store and search Rapchat, and we'll be available on both iOS and Android. There's also a rap name generator that we introduced in December last year, where you can put in your name and it'll generate a cool rap name for you. So that is a lot of fun. And I'm actually going to pull it up and see if I can't get one for you, Jay. Because what was your rap name?
It's been a couple things. When I was working at a healthcare company, my rap name was HIPAA compliant, which I think is a great rap name, first of all. Lately, I've got, my current name is Unreal. I just registered an account for Upside, and there may or may not be an Easter egg at the end of this episode where Eric and I share a couple of our own raps.
Love it.
The leak.
All right, Frosty J. Profit. That was one. But yeah.
Frosty J. Profit is not bad.
Not terrible, no. I think we got to update our algorithm, though, because some of these are getting really long, which means it's been used over 1 million times.
It's going to be hard to beat HIPAA compliant. I felt pretty good about HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, we gotta add in some seeds. So yeah, all right, Google Rapchat. If you drop a rap and tag it with Upside, we'll be able to send over a list, and maybe we can get the tag trending or something. Or maybe you guys can get the tag trending. But we'll send over a list of raps, and you guys can tweet it out. And if there's some good ones, we'll tweet it out from our account like we normally do. So we're also Rapchat app on Twitter and on Instagram. And we're like, Twitter's definitely follow us on Twitter. That's where all our announcements are. And we also tweet out a lot of funny like rap videos. So
good stuff, man. Well, Seth, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to see how Rapchat grows in the future, and I'll be back in the app soon, man.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. It's fun.
All right, Eric, we just talked to Seth Miller, co-founder and CEO of Rapchat. What stood out to you? And also, can you introduce what we're about to do here?
What we're going to do here is a very simplified verbal deal memo. We're going to call it a deal memo. It's a version of a deal memo. But what a deal memo is it is a way, after you review a company, you do your research and you do an interview, to write out all of the things you like about the company, all the things you don't like about the company. You look at the current market, and there's a lot of other things that go into it. But for our purposes, we want to look at 4 main questions and see if we can get a firm understanding and a good feeling behind these 4. So they are, how committed is this founder? What are this founder's chances of success both in this business and in life? What does winning look like in terms of revenue and my return, or our return in this case? And why has this founder chosen this business? So Jay, looking and hearing Seth, what do you think is kind of the thing that stands out to you? Because I know you asked me that, but I'm turning the question back on you. I want you to start us off.
That's fine. Take a minute to think. I'll take.
There's a lot. I want to let it, just kind of like drip down.
So to me, what's always stood out about Seth is that, we talk on this podcast, as we just mentioned, about doing things in what some people would see as the hard way and going the harder path. He's got a B2C company, and he was in California. He went through 500 startups, one of the most premier accelerators out there. And he came back to Columbus to build this company. And I know from living here that this is not the friendliest place to try to raise capital from investors for a B2C company. And not only is he doing that, and did he do it successfully, I don't have a corollary of another company, anything like Rapchat, anything in the B2C space that's done that here. But he made that first convertible note from 500 startups, which he received at the end of 2015, stretch until the middle of 2017, maybe even later, before he closed this $1 million Series A. Again, this is like super capital efficient. He came back to live with his parents. There are companies that were in his batch in 500 startups that raised their Series A over a year ago and are on a Series B now. He's proven that he can be capital efficient while growing the company. And that's not even touching on the fact, which he just kind of glossed over, that's always been remarkable to me. He taught himself how to code native mobile to build the first version of this. You don't hear that. You don't meet people who did that. And the people who tried weren't able to actually build a product people want, and then that people used that didn't break. That's what really stood out to me. There's a lot more to say about that, but let's get your initial thoughts.
Yeah, the coding, the teaching yourself how to do it, and then having millions of people or millions of uploads of raps on it is just like, it's like mind-bending stuff. But the thing that really stood out to me is something we didn't actually talk about that much. Well, we did indirectly, but it's the community and how strong the community is on the platform. Even though it's not the largest social network, the engagement is through the roof. And that is hard to do. The niche social network is kind of like a thing now. So you have social networks focused around real estate. You have social networks focused around really anything, right? But this one around rap and creating rap music and hip hop music seems to have a really deep hold on users. And I think it is partially due, or maybe primarily due, to the intense focus on retention by both the founders.
And what's got to be kind of frustrating, and where we still need to move the needle here outside of Silicon Valley, is those numbers, that engagement, that usage, that retention, those numbers should speak for themselves, even for investors who haven't seen anything like this before. You should be able to take those numbers and plug them in to a corollary of something out west that's done something similar and understand the opportunity in front of you with this. Obviously, the story for Rapchat is yet to be told, the ultimate outcome. But for an average user to spend 15 plus minutes a day in this application, that should tell you enough. 15 minutes a day of somebody's attention, which is the most precious and rare resource any of us have, is a huge testament. What did he say? The only app that beats that is Facebook and Instagram. Not bad company to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. What were some of the areas that you were like, I'm still a little hesitant to fully grasp and fully like embrace?
I'm curious where they will ultimately go with this model, because from the direction of revenue coming from in-app purchases, which needs to come from a small percentage of users, does it really need to be a full-out user growth model, or are there users, these semi-professional musicians, creators, who want to use this tool to create their art? You know, should this be something more akin to the Adobe Creative Cloud, where you pay a subscription and that's the number you care about? You care about number of paid subscribers. Do you need to put more focus in building tools for them and acquiring those users than just acquiring your everyday bad rapper like you or I? What did you think?
I haven't heard your rap yet, so I don't know if you're bad or if you're terrible. So you might have been giving yourself a little bit of leeway there.
I can tell you that my best rap I ever made was for a New Year's party, in 2015. And I actually have most of it memorized. It was like New Year's Eve 2015, year of making friends, a year of making green. Maybe you got some you regret. Maybe you got some to forget. Whatever your reason for coming here, let's get together for the new year. 2016 is gonna be nuts. I'm telling you now, hold onto your butts. And so is our New Year's party. I'm losing my don't get me started. We got 3 or 4 bands playing some tunes. We got 3 or 4 coolers full of the booze. Don't expect to drink hot cocoa. In this house, we drink 4 Loco. Wear something fancy. Bring your best dance moves. You can get dancy. Wear something nice. We're going to get fancy. Something like that. Pretty good, but that was
that's not bad.
It was not
You just started
freestyle.
saying it at the end, though. You didn't rap anymore. You just started saying it.
I don't know if I rapped it in the first place, but I took that, I saved that file, and this is the best party I've ever thrown. And it was, I'm not kidding. It was because I took the audio, I took a bunch of just random videos from my camera roll, I tossed it into iMovie, and I made a film out of it. I think if you search Vimeo NYE_2015_hype and maybe throw my name on there, you might find this video.
That's actually really interesting because if they do decide to go to the Creative Cloud suite, getting back to Rapchat for a second, your thing sounds amazing. But if the audience finds that, please post to Twitter. But as I'm in the mindset of analyzing this company and their potential,
sorry, yes, that's what we're here for.
If they do go to the cloud suite and they decide to be a professional studio type thing for rappers who want to make it up the pipeline while still opening the funnel at the top for people to get in, music videos are pretty hot, so it would be pretty cool if they could do something with that as well. Maybe a little bit better than your pictures.
Music videos are hot. For independent musicians, one of the easiest ways or shortest paths to getting self-sufficient income is licensing your music. And so if they use this tool to create, and obviously there's some legal implication of whether the beats they're using are owned by them or able to be used by them, but let's assume they're buying some premium beats that they can use. If you create music that you license, that is how a lot of musicians I know pay for being a full-time musician while they build up some of their other music as they license it to commercials, TV shows, movies.
That's pretty cool. So we asked about my concern. So sorry, we got a little sidetrack there. Jay threw a New Year's party in the middle of our deal memo. But one thing I'm interested about and I asked about was the record labels and their relationship with them. It seems like they have some really great relationships there, and they've definitely dug themselves a little bit of a relationship moat. And as we discussed in the interview, I'm hesitant to believe that they're utilizing those relationships to their full potential. Maybe it's strategic, or maybe it's just a bit of fear. But it's one of the two, and I think that it's an untapped resource at this point.
I would agree. And, this is the type of business that I look at and I say, if you get the right influencers behind this, talking about Rapchat and driving their audiences into Rapchat, this business transforms overnight. And I think part of what has slowed them down from doing that, A, it's not like you snap your fingers and you form relationships with influencers. B, I know that they have been looking at this premium beat in-app purchase model for a while. And that was a big part of their fundraise. It was a big focus, but fundraising itself was a big focus. And until they could do that, they couldn't dig into that. I think they were holding back a little bit to build some of that capability out until they had cash, and they were waiting to turn on some of the marketing and influencers until they had a product that people could go in and buy,
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of pivoting real quick to the founder himself, and I know you started off on this, but when we're looking at these questions, there is no doubt in my mind that Seth is a committed founder. He took 8 to 12 months living at home, teaching himself how to code, going broke in San Francisco, which I can't even imagine going broke in San Francisco because I feel like that just has to be like the worst city to be broke in because you can't leave.
Happens like that.
Yeah, but I think that he could not be more committed. I am a little bit miffed that we didn't get to hear like the real why. Like, why did he stick through this team that kind of left for different jobs? Why did he stick through his first job and just run with this idea? Maybe he's like a huge rapaholic and we didn't really get to that, but I couldn't make that connection why this idea was so Seth that it couldn't be anybody else's.
You're right. We should have dug into that more, and all I can do is speculate. It could also be that, his business partner, Pat, is driving a lot of this. But, a why could be, it's clear to me that Seth understands the business potential, the actual winning potential of this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's enough to drive a lot of founders. But, I'm like you. I don't know if I got I live and breathe hip hop. It might be. I didn't get that from the interview, but I did not get that from the interview. So I'm like you. We could have dug into that a little bit more, but for the sheer fact that he did come back to extend his own runway to keep this going, and then he went through over a year of fundraising to get there, working on it, building it the entire time. I mean, think about this guy who's taught himself how to code. He's an engineer. Let's say he has an engineering skill set. The opportunity cost of being a native mobile engineer, even in Ohio, on an annualized basis, is over 6 figures. So to me, for him to forego that revenue from a salary to do this speaks to his commitment, and it speaks to some underlying motivation that's bigger than, I wanna just be a CEO of a company.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, he's a Cleveland fan, so he loves to grind it out. That's what I got out of it. We've been grinding it out for years, man.
This is the year. This is the year.
Yeah. So what about competitors? The competitive landscape was interesting to me. It seemed to be, at least in his eyes, primarily dominated by just one conglomerate.
Yeah, from what he could draw as the closest corollary. I think part of our assessment at the beginning of this interview is correct from the standpoint of their competitors aren't just other music creation apps. Their competitors are these social networks that are taking up people's time and attention. Would you agree?
I would agree, 100%.
So I think he's looking at, are their competitors doing exactly what we're doing? And it sounds like over the years there's been some copycats or some companies who are trying to play in a similar space. But with the age they have in the market, the retention they have, the user growth they're having, 10% month over month or year over year. I think he meant month over month. That's pretty good. That gives them some staying power. Their demographic is hard to serve generally, but their competitors, like I said, if they're really competing for attention, and they don't need to do it from an advertising standpoint with the model they're doing now, but they're fighting against the likes of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Snapchat.
Yeah, we got, I think it was 10x over 2 years was the number, but we got a little sidetracked and a little long-winded. Not sidetracked. I take that word back. We got a little deep into a topic that is maybe more social than it is commercial, and that took us a little over. So one thing we didn't get to, and I don't think we need to go back into that topic, but one thing that we didn't get to touch on is, what does the future of this look like, right? Because when I look at what is potential revenue in a deal like this, and what is a potential 10 years down the road product look like, I'm still a little limited in the vision. I'm not, and this is a more of a critique of us than it is of the business at all, and our ability to effectively ask the correct questions, which we're not always going to do. So
it's hard to cover a lot of ground in an hour. We want to know about the product. We want to know about the landscape. The question I think you're alluding to is, what is the long-term vision? What does an exit look like here?
Does it extend beyond rap? Is it more than that? And yes, that is exactly what I'm asking and talking about, and it's more of a comment than a question. But I think that it's something we can do better next time. What do you think of that?
That's a good question, and I think that was a super prescient thought you had in the upfront of, does this need to be Rapchat, or can it be the corollary of Rap Genius, which just became Genius, and could it be that for country music? Could it be that for pop music? And I think you're right. He didn't speak to that, but I think there is an opportunity there, because what he did allude to is that he's trying to give the tools to sort of democratize the creation of music.
Right.
And even when we look at the competitive landscape and some of the consolidation that's happened in music apps, as we talked about at the upfront, Shazam being bought by $400 million, Musical.ly being bought for $800 million. I think the play is ultimately acquisition or exit. He even alluded to some point, the model is users, sell, let someone who's figured out monetization figure that out with your user base. And, I think they're in that zone. It's going to take a little bit of time. I don't know the user numbers on Shazam or Musical.ly when they were bought. Smule sounds like it's a conglomerate itself. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a acquisition exit. What the multiple is, that's all going to depend on how long they take to get acquired and how they can keep the growth, engagement, retention up, and whether they can expand horizontally or they stay vertical and become the number one source for the future of rap. So the chance the rappers go through there, everyone goes through there before they get picked up by a record label, and that's how you get spotted. They essentially become oh man, why am I going to blank on this? What's the younger kids basketball league that everyone has to play in? AAU. It's AAU.
That sounds familiar. That's
embarrassing. Yeah, so it's AAU that every star basketball player plays in at the beginning. It's the pipeline, right? Is this the rap pipeline? If that's what it becomes, then I think it's much bigger, and it might be able to stand on its own or be something like a Hulu with a joint venture with all the major record labels. I'm not sure.
And that was an interesting question that it seemed like he hadn't quite decided yet. Is the value here recognizing and then representing some of these artists that are up and coming, or is the value the fact that artists are being recognized and that drives user growth? It kind of looks at two different business models.
Right.
The music industry is super interesting in terms of, can you make money as a label? On one hand, these gatekeepers are kind of falling down in a lot of industries. Book publishing, writing generally is crashing, whereas the music industry has actually retained some of its value because they have rights to the entire back catalog that's existed. And, there's still some profitability in music, but it's got to be tough to just be an up and coming label at this point. Most of the powers that be are the powers that be. They've got the back catalogs and they've existed. So I agree that's interesting, and he has an interesting crossroads there. I don't know what that means in terms of our return and what is possible with either one of those models specifically.
Yeah, and just to hypothecate a little bit more, only because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, Spotify just went public, and relating Spotify to Netflix is actually very hard, although they seem like very similar models, because Netflix was able to leverage and pretty much operated at a loss on the movie industry until they had enough cash in the door to start creating their own originals. And then eventually they had to get rid of movies, but they were allowed to keep TV shows, right? So third-party TV shows were like, yeah, we don't care if you have your own TV shows. We're on stations with TV shows all the time, but movies cared. In the music industry, it's a lot more consolidated, and you have full artists that will pull off who are driving so much of Spotify's traffic and user-based growth. So if someone like Spotify bought this, right, and they said, look, we're not competing with Taylor Swift or Kanye West or anything like that, right? We're not like hiring independent artists here. This is our like little pipeline that we look at, and it probably won't ever get any like play because you guys have the better pipelines. You have the priority, and they could play it like that. So I've been thinking about the curious ways that Spotify can get into their own content generation, or their own, essentially becoming their own record label. And this seems like, as a strategic acquisition, if they can expand this across the multiple genres, it might be one that is pretty interesting to them.
Even Spotify is such an interesting company to think about because, to my knowledge, they're not a highly profitable company. And, neither was Amazon for a long time, so maybe that's the wrong metric to look at.
Right.
But they pay so much money to these record labels to keep that catalog on there. What is their play? What is the long-term value of a Spotify? And they've been at it for how many years? A decade? So
yeah,
it's tough to look at Spotify and say this is the model to look at too. It's anything in B2C like this, and this is why Midwest investors are so conservative. It's hard to look at and to understand and to really quantify because even the winners in this market are new. They're less than 20 years old, and there's so few of them. It's hard for people to look at this and say, I understand the B2C model, and this looks like that, and I know it's going to be successful because there's just not the longitudinal history and the cases to look at. So Eric, putting you on the spot, putting on your investor hat. How do you think about companies like this? What's important to you? Do you think about taking a chance, or what are you looking at for 6 to 18 months from now out of Rapchat to make this something that you're compelled by?
So I think that the model of looking at a B2C company in general and taking it on that user growth trajectory and advertising trajectory is definitely something that, I mean, you have to consider, especially if the founders are like, they have it in their minds. I think it's all about being founder friendly as an investor, but I mean, you want to keep your investors safe, but you need to be a little founder friendly. The second part of that question was, where do I see Rapchat in 6 to 18 months? And that hinges so much on what they do with this business model and how they either marry the two of these business models together in a way that is, they're going to have to prioritize one over the other if they want to really accelerate growth. And whether that's growth of revenue or growth of users, that's a decision they're going to have to make. But I don't think you can continue forever in limbo between two business models unless you are being aggressively funded. So in 6 to 18 months, I expect Rapchat's growth to continue. I expect their engagement or retention to continue. And I expect them to have leaned one way or the other in their business model. Not cut off one or the other, just leaned on one or the other.
I would agree. Seth's the type of founder that I think he knows his product. I think he knows his market. He knows it much better than I do. I trust Seth to figure that out and guide the ship. I would love to hear more certainty from Seth on which direction he's going. And I think we just caught him at a time where he's thinking about these things a lot and considering. But, you know, once he decides the direction he's going, I think they will go full steam ahead and do that. What's interesting to me, or what would have been interesting to ask that I had a note for and just didn't do, was if he looks at the pure B2C side and the user growth side, what is their current customer acquisition cost and their current customer acquisition strategy? And how does that compare to the average lifetime value, even if that is spread across all their users, mostly coming from the power users? Because that helps me as an investor, no matter where I am, understand this opportunity a little bit better and understand my personal upside a little bit better.
It's a great question.
Anything else that I missed that we wanted to talk about?
No, that was great, and I hope everyone enjoyed it who's listening.
Yeah, I hope you guys listen through the end of our outro here. We've got a disclaimer that we'd like you to listen through as well. Eric and I are not professional investors, and this is not investment advice, so give that a listen. But at the end, if you stick through the end of that disclaimer, you will hear some Easter eggs of Eric and I trying out the Rapchat platform, so please stick around. Thanks for listening to Upside.
Tantalizing. They are lit. People are going nuts in the background. It's wild.
People are talking about it. I'll say that. People are talking about it. So thanks for listening, guys. If you love our show, please subscribe and leave us a rating on iTunes. Helps us out a ton. If there's anything we're missing, and really, truly, we'd love to hear your take on this one. This is outside of our own expertise. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. And if you know a guest who would be good on our show, please email or tweet at us as well. Eric, thanks for taking the time late on a Tuesday night to record this interview. We're exhausted.
We are exhausted, and it's great talking to you, Jay. Great talking to Seth. Later.
See you guys next time. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's guest, so shoot us an email at hello@upside.fm or find us on Twitter @UpsideFM. We'll be back here next week at the same time talking to another founder in our quest to find upside outside of Silicon Valley. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Eric and I decided there were a couple things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast, and so here we go. Eric Hornung and Jay Klaus are the founding parties of the Upside podcast. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interest in the companies which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Duff & Phelps LLC and its affiliates, Unreal Collective LLC and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Never mind. Bro, that can't be matched. I'm lighting it on fire. Used to run victory laps, and still I'm not even tired. It's all about the timing, yeah, that's what they say. Well, I'ma keep on rhyming, find a way and get it on the face.
Upside, outside, feeling like a 90s jam. Hands up, side to side, starting up high, fam. Yeah, we're like a 90s band. 20-somethings, boys to men. Pixie dust up on the scene, flying out of Neverland. Gotta hold up and acknowledge the fact that this whole jam was made on Rapchat. Shout out to Seth and shout out to Pat. That's my dude from my UP, but we was bumping the track. In college, no dollars, we ain't talking about that. Upside, outside, I can't sing but I tried. Upside, outside, I can't sing but I tried. Upside, outside, upside, outside, upside, outside, upside, outside. Let me explain what we're doing. Finding dope founders and we're talking to them. We're not thugs, we have no POC influence. Like them, we're growing too just. Maybe not as fast and maybe not as well. They're pretty Series A and we're, well, finding an upside outside of the valley. That doesn't mean we are opposed to Cali, but the scales have been tilted, not favoring the best. Am I about to endorse Rise of the Rest?
Upside? Let me take a minute to talk about the pod. No love outside the valley. Felt kinda odd. We're here to shine a light outside of the coast. The folks who never brag, the ones who never boast. We know they kick ass, and so we tip our hat, spinning up a pod and making a rap chat. Subscribe to Upside on iTunes. 5 stars.